Hey guys, I hope you're okay. Thank you for all the ones that did your tests. The points that you got, the grade, it's at the end of the test, so you can see how much you got. For all the ones that didn't do it, I'm sorry. I guess that you know how much you got if you didn't do your work. Okay, so last time I told you to finish reading chapter 12, if I'm not wrong, and you were supposed to read what Harry gets for Christmas. And they talk a little about Fran's family, Ron's family, and what Ron gets, and what they get every Christmas. And a very special gift Harry gets. And then he goes and he explores. He explores out and he finds something amazing in a unused classroom. It's a classroom that people doesn't use, and he sees some people in this classroom, and Ron sees something different in the mirror. I just said that they find, and then both of them see something different in the mirror. You're gonna have questions tomorrow, so I hope that you read it because you're gonna have questions about it. Okay, chapter 13. Nicholas Flamel. Dumbledore had convinced Harry not to go looking for the Mirror of Erised again, and for the rest of the Christmas holidays the invisibility cloak stayed folded at the bottom of his trunk. You should read chapter 12 to know what the invisibility cloak is, because you're going to have questions about it. Harry wished he could forget what he'd seen in the mirror as easily, but he couldn't. He started having nightmares. Over and over again, he dreamed about his parents disappearing in a flash of green light, while a high voice cackled and laughed with laughter. So he had nightmares of the day that his parents died. You see, Dumbledore was right. That mirror could drive you mad, said Ron, when Harry told him about these dreams. Hermione, who came back the day before term started, took a different view of things. She was torn between horror at the idea of Harry being out of bed, roaming the school 3 nights in a row. A Filch have got you, and disappointment that he hadn't had at least found out who Nicholas Flamel was. They almost had given up hope for ever finding Flanet at a library book, even though Harry was still sure he read the name somewhere. Once term had started, they were back to skimming through books for 10 minutes during their breaks. Harry had even less time than the other two because Quidditch practice had started again. Wood was working with the team harder than ever. Even the endless rain that had replaced the snow couldn't dampen his spirits. The Weasleys complained that Wood was becoming a fanatic, but Harry was on Wood's side. If they won their next match against Hufflepuff, they would overtake Slytherin in the house championship for the first time in 7 years. So they were still trying to find out who Nicholas Flamel is. Nicholas Flamel is mentioned by by Hagrid after a Quidditch match, and they want to know who he is, but Hagrid didn't want to tell them, and they try to figure out, but they haven't so far. And they try to figure out in the library because that's how you're supposed to find information, but the library didn't give them any information about Flamel so far, so they're struggling with that. Oh. Uh-huh. Quite apart from wanting to win, Harry found that he had fewer nightmares when he was tired out of the training. Then, during one particularly wet and muddy practice season, they practiced on the rain. That would be uncomfortable. Wood gave the team a bit of bad news. He'd just gotten very angry with the Weasleys, who kept dive bombing each other and pretending to fall off their brooms. Will you stop messing around? He yelled. That's exactly the sort of thing that loses in the match. Snape's referring this time, and he'll be looking for any excuse to knock points off Gryffindor. George Weasley really did fall off his broom at these words. Snape's referring? He spluttered through a mouthful of mud. When he's ever referred the Quidditch match, he's not going to be fair if we might overtake Slytherin. The rest of the team landed next to George to complain to. It's not my fault, said Wood. "We just got to make sure that we play a clean game so Snape hasn't got any excuse to pick on us." Which was all very well, thought Harry, but he had another reason for not wanting Snape near him while he was playing Quidditch. The rest of the team hung back to talk to another as usual at the end of practice, but Harry headed straight back to the Gryffindor common room, where he found Ron and Hermione playing chess. Chess, as you can remember, is magic, was the only thing that Hermione ever lost at, something Ron and Harry thought was very good for her. So she was almost perfect, but Quidditch wasn't her thing. "Don't talk to me for a moment," said Ron when Harry sat down next to him. "I need to concern." He caught sight of his face. "Harry, what's the matter with you? You look terrible." Harry, speaking quietly so that no one else would hear, Harry told the other two about Snape's sudden sinister desire to be a Quidditch referee. "Don't play," said Hermione at once. "Say you're ill," said Ron. "Pretend to break your leg," Hermione suggested. "Really break your leg," said Ron. "I can't," said Harry. "There isn't a reserve sticker. If I back out, Gryffindor can play at all." At that moment, Neville toppled into the common room. How he managed to climb through the portrait hole was anyone's guess, because his legs had been stuck together with what they recognized at once as the leg locker curse. He must have had to bunny hop all the way up to the Gryffindor Tower. So his legs were stuck like that, so he couldn't walk. He should have jumped. Everyone fell over laughing except Hermione, who leapt up and performed the counter course. Neville's legs sprang apart and he got to his feet trembling. "What happened?" Hermione asked him, leading him over to sit with Harry and Neville. "Malfoy," Neville said shakily. "I met him outside the library. He said he'd been looking for someone to practice that on." "Go to Professor McGonagall," Hermione urged Neville. "Report him." Neville shook his head. "I don't want more trouble," he mumbled. "You've got to stand up to him, Neville," said Ron. "He's used to walking all over people, but that's no reason to lay down in front of him and make it easier." "There's no need to tell me I'm not brave enough to be in Gryffindor. Malfoy's already done that." Neville choked out. Harry felt in the pocket of his robes and pulled out a chocolate frog, the very last one from the box Hermione had given him for Christmas. He gave it to Neville, who looked as though he might cry. "You're worth 12 of Malfoy," Harry said. "The Sorting Hat chose you for Gryffindor, didn't it? And where's Malfoy?" "In stinking Slytherin." Neville's lips twitched in a weak smile as he unwrapped the frog. "Thanks, Harry. I think I'll go to bed. You want the card? You collect them, don't you?" As Neville walked away, Harry looked at the famous wizard card. "Dumbledore again," he said. "He was at the first one ever He gasped. He stared at the back of the card, then he looked up at Ron and Hermione. "I found him," he whispered. "I found him," he whispered. "I found Flamel. I told you I read the name somewhere before. I read it on the train coming here. Listen to this. Dumbledore is particularly famous for his defeat of the Dark Wizard Grindelwald in 1945, for the discovery of the 12 uses of dragon's blood, and his work on alchemy with his partner Nicholas Flamel." Hermione jumped to her feet. She hadn't looked so excited since they gotten back the marks for the very piece of homework. "Stay there," she said, and sprinted upstairs to the girls' dormitories. Harry and Ron barely had time to exchange mystified looks before she was dashing back, an enormous old book in her arms. "I never thought to look in here," she whispered excitedly. "I got this out of the library weeks ago for a bit of light reading." Light? The book was like this thick, like this big, and that was light reading. But Hermione told him to be quiet until she looked something up and started flicking frantically through the pages, muttering to herself. At last she found what she was looking for. "I knew it! I knew it!" "Nicholas Flamel," she whispered dramatically, "is the only known maker of the Sorcerer's Stone." The name of the book. They didn't have quite the effect she expected. "The what?" said Harry and Ron. "Oh, honestly, don't you two read?" Look, read that there. She pushed the book toward them, and Harry and Ron read. The ancient study of alchemy is concerned with making of the Sorcerer's Stone, a legendary substance with astonishing powers. The stone will transform any metal into pure gold. It also produces the elixir of life, which will make the drinker immortal. There have been many reports of the Sorcerer's Stone over the centuries, but the only stone currently in existence belonged to Mr. Nicholas Flamel, the noted alchemist and opera lover. Mr. Flamel, who celebrated his 665th birthday last year, enjoys a quiet life in Devon with his wife, Perenelle, 658. See, said Hermione, when Harry and Ron had finished. The dog must be guarding Flamel's Sorcerer's Stone. I bet he asked Dumbledore to keep it safe for him, because they're friends and knew someone was after it. That's why he wanted the stone. Move out of Gringotts. A stone that makes gold and stops you from ever dying, said Harry. No wonder Snape's after it. Anyone would want it. And no wonder we couldn't find Flamel in that study of recent developments in wizardry, said Ron. He's not exactly recent if he's 665, is he? Okay, so you will read the rest of the chapter, and I won't give you extra days because tomorrow I'll give you questions from chapter 11, 12, and 13. So finish reading chapter 13. I will give you questions on Wednesday, and this question should be sent to me on Friday. Okay? Okay? See you guys. Remember to finish.